Well, the government has overruled the Christchurch City Council's attempts to limit building heights in parts of the city, allowing for significantly greater urban density and taller developments. Christchurch residents advocate and former journalist and also Riccarton Ward Council candidate Tony Simons is against this, and he joins me now. Good evening to you.
Yes, hi.
Background this for me. You were against this kind of intensification from the start.
Yeah, you really don't want me to go into this because it's been a 2 or 3 year battle. But basically, yes, the government suggested countrywide intensification, which we all called at the time one-size-fits-all intensification, which was going to apply to all the main centres around the country. And it took no account of individual cities' needs or what the community wanted. And we battled against that. In fact, the mayor at the time, Leanne Dalzell, she actually came up with the term one size fits all and fought against it. And that's where it really all started. And it's kind of snowballed since then. And the Labor and the national governments got together and put their heads together and said, look, this might be a really good way of solving our housing crisis. The only problem with that was that Christchurch didn't have one. We had an affordability crisis. You could argue that housing has become unaffordable, but we didn't have a housing supply crisis, and they were going to impose this Plan Change 14 on us, which was going to basically intensify the entire city, and there was absolutely no need for it. Anyway, to cut a long story short, we pushed back on it. The council, in the end, folded and said, okay, we will not notify this plan because there's obviously a huge amount of agitation in the community against it, and we will not notify it. And one of the councillors, actually one of the left-leaning councillors, actually said, "Let's give the government the finger," and that's exactly what the council did. And then the minister came back and said, "Okay, well we'll give you a bit more time," and that's what's happened. But unfortunately, the battle is lost, but not the war, Chris, not the war.
Tony, what exactly is wrong with this, though? What is wrong with this plan? So essentially the government is saying, right, a one-size-fits-all approach is in fact what they're going to do, and intensification is coming to a suburb near you, whether you like it or not. So what is actually wrong with this plan? What don't you like about it?
Look, the plan as it is at the moment is a lot better than it was originally. There have been changes. To be fair, there have been changes made, and it's gone through a hearings panel, and the hearings panel has made changes as well. High density has been redefined from 6 stories down to 4 stories, so that's a big win. That wasn't something that we were prepared to accept. 6-story intensification around suburbs. We got that. But it's still 4 stories around many of our centres is overkill. And I've been wrongly pigeonholed as an anti-intensification guy, which is probably understandable given the fact that this is a very black and white kind of an argument. You're either for it or you're against it. There doesn't seem to be any room for any compromise, and I'd like there to be. So everyone's taken sides. And in fact, I've been always in favour of sensible, planned, sustainable densification where it's needed to respond to the demand for housing and where the community is in favour of it. And there are lots of communities in Christchurch that are in favour of densification, particularly around the university, where there's a great need for perhaps increased densification to cope with increased student population. But there are other parts of the city where densification simply isn't needed, and I am vehemently opposed to high-rise housing around Riccarton Bush. And that's one thing that really gets up my nose, is the fact that this will actually allow 4-story housing around the boundaries of Riccarton Bush, which is a taonga to our city, for our city, and it should be protected. And that's just an example of what the minister has simply chosen to ignore. He was quoted recently in the media, I think it was in a function in Auckland. Was it a music awards function, where he said, "What a load of crap." Well, I'd like to reflect that right back to him and say, this minister is a load of crap.
Tony, you know that there will be some that will call you a NIMBY. What do you say to that?
The point I've just tried to make was that we need to have housing intensification which meets the demands for the future of our city. And the minister himself set targets. He said Christchurch, Wellington, Auckland, Tauranga, Rotorua, all need to have housing intensification enabled to cope with the projected growth in housing over the next 30 to 50 years. Christchurch already has that. We don't need to open the doors to developers to build whatever they like, wherever they like. Otherwise, we're just going to get a city full of high-rise, shitty little boxes, which no one wants to live in, and will make the developers a whole lot of money, and the whole fabric of our city will be compromised. And we don't need that. So I'm no NIMBY. If I'm a NIMBY, it's for the sake of the city, not for my neighbourhood. I'm a NIMBY for Christchurch, not in Christchurch. This is a city that I'm very proud to live in, and I've lived here for a long, long time, and I want it to be the best city in New Zealand.
The irony there, of course, Tony, is there's plenty of these little shitty boxes that have popped up or infill all around the city.
Already.
I'm quite surprised, particularly when I was driving down as at Waltham Road or something rather, you think, oh my goodness, there's about 50 million of them on a one by one square metre.
Exactly right. So, Chris, under our existing planning regulations, the developers are able to do this. Imagine what they'll be able to do when the rules are relaxed even further.
The government also didn't accept the argument when it came to sunlight, did it? Which I was surprised by. For all the reasons that we think of, mental health, for example, just one of them.
Go and ask the minister why he did that. I've got no idea. No idea whatsoever.
How disappointing is that for you?
Well, I'm bitterly disappointed. I'd be honest with you and say that I was preparing for the minister to accept what the alternative recommendations that the council had put forward, thinking that Chris Bishop was a reasonable guy, and that he could understand that in Christchurch in particular, these sorts of decisions, this sort of intensification is not necessary. So I'm bitterly disappointed. But it is a battle. Remember, this is a battle in a long series of events that have happened over a number of years. We lost the bat. This is a battle lost, but the war, if you like, continues. And councils come and go, and ministers come and go. And nothing is going to change in the immediate future. We're not going to all of a sudden wake up tomorrow with 4-story buildings around Riccarton and Hornby and Church Corner. That's not going to happen. It's going to take time. So there's also time to actually turn this thing around and actually make some plan changes that will actually moderate the more harmful impacts of what the minister has just approved.
I suppose it's no surprise for you that Christchurch Mayor Phil Major also says he's bitterly disappointed as well.
Well, I'm pleased he is, and I am too. I mean, it is. It's like having your legs cut out from under you, really. I mean, I can't say enough about how important it is that when you make these sorts of decisions, you take into account the local context. What matters in Wellington. I'm sure the minister knows what matters in Wellington. That's where he comes from, but he obviously doesn't know what matters in Christchurch.
Tony, what's the feedback been like from the people in your community, the ones that have been with you every step of the way in regards to this argument?
Well, I've had a number of Facebook messages and a few text messages sent to me today. They're quite short, and they probably the sorts of things I can't repeat. So, everyone's really disturbed by it, upset by it, kind of can't understand why he would, out of something like 20 alternative recommendations that the council was making, he has accepted 3 and rejected the others. And in fact, I'm not even sure if he's fully accepted even 3. He just seemed to want to go through and just say no, and that's effectively what he's done. This was a reasonable set of alternative recommendations that the council put forward. The hearings panel may not have agreed, but the council, may I suggest the council, made up of people who represent the voters of Christchurch, should have their view should have been taken more seriously.
Tony, it'll be interesting to see what those who always argue, who always often say, local communities, local democracy matters the most, but it'll be interesting to see if that argument still stacks up now that I hazard a guess that they might be for this decision by the minister. So the hypocrisy will continue, no doubt. We're out of time. Tony Simons, Riccarton Ward Council candidate, I wish you well, and it's nice to speak with you. Thank you for your time tonight.
Yeah, thanks, Chris.